Welcome to Coming About with David Paragamian, the podcast that dives deep into the minds of leaders who have transformed their businesses and industries, paving the way for a better future. Here's Dave.
I'm back with marketing leader Grace Tobin. We've been talking about her incredible career journey from unexpectedly falling into pharma right out of college to pivoting across roles in sales, marketing, and global strategy. So Grace, we tracked your journey from beautiful Santa Monica to snowy Scranton and into global roles. But then after nearly a decade of rising through the ranks of marketing at Sanofi Pasteur, you made a big decision and a pivot to a large global biotech company in the pharma space. There you led a global multi-billion-dollar brand, a household name to all of us, managing both the HCP side of the business and the DTC marketing side of the business. Tell me about the bravery that it took to make that leap and some of the learnings from managing such a big brand and different budget size and scale. Any interesting insights you can share about that experience?
Good question and big question. So the move to biotech was major for me for a few reasons. I had been at Sanofi for about 13 years. It was my home. It was all I knew because I had been there right from undergrad. So it was a huge pivot for me to go from big pharma and my comfort zone, a company that had lots of layers and process and structure, to a lean, scrappy, well-funded biotech in a role where I was building a team and actually also building a market. Because when you think about it, the pandemic market was over. When I got into the role, the pandemic was declared over. So now what do? We're launching this brand in a couple of months. The government declares the pandemic over in our country. So yeah, it was a whole lot of transition for me at once. New company, building a market, building a team, leading DTC, which I had only ever focused on HCP. So it was a big deal for me. The spend was large. There were a lot of eyes on it. And it was the company's only product. So, talk about pressure. And it was a seasonal business. So timing was super, super critical. And we were shaping a market while also trying to gain majority share, which is a risky proposition coming in as the underdog. The product had a 6-month indication with a universal recommendation, which it sounds great, right? The world is your oyster, but from a targeting perspective, kind of tricky because you can't just be everywhere. And it was a sensitive topic. People were over talking about COVID, being told that they needed to be vaccinated. So in a world where there were so many places for people to consume content and where COVID had sort of been really tuned out, it was really important to have solid segmentation, make some big bets on high impact media, and create a well thought out patient journey for a couple of select target patient cohorts that would be sort of slam dunks. I think that the overload of channels that we experience today makes it really difficult in today's world to cut through the clutter. And we had to find some unique, innovative ways to do that and to engage our audience, creating unique consumer experiences where our message would be delivered in a non-traditional way, in a way that would be well received, like sporting events, music festivals, Jeopardy, things like that. It was fun. It was really fun because it was money that I, wasn't able to spend in my former jobs. So it was kind of like all the fun, innovative things I had always wanted to do as a marketer, I was able to do, but it was definitely difficult because we had a time crunch and, the company had one product. So it was rewarding, but also high stress, high stakes.
And as I listen to you tell that story about big brand, big budgets, lots to do in an omni-channel world, I think people sometimes think, well, that's easy then for a marketer because I'll just spend everything everywhere. And interestingly, it sounds like the discipline and the rigor of your training is what helped you to say, well, wait, yes, I have a lot of channels and I have a lot of money, but I need to be really smart about, I need to reach consumers in perhaps some non-traditional channels or other places where it's right to activate them. So it wasn't just about being the richest brand manager on the street with the biggest budget. It was about being the smartest brand manager, being really strategic with even that large purse full of money, right?
Correct. Absolutely. Yeah. Like being very choiceful about where we would make the most impact um, with the right type of audience. At that point, if you weren't vaccinated by the spring of 2023, you're not going to get vaccinated. So why waste our time trying to convince someone who for 3 years now has decided to not be vaccinated, and instead fish where there are fish. Go after the crowds that have gotten vaccinated at least once or twice and play there.
Oh, it totally makes sense. Along the way, obviously, both in your first chapter at Sanofi and in those global roles, and then obviously most recently at this large biotech with that product, you've worked with, hired, fired, looked at some of the best advertising agencies in the business. Any observations on what makes a great agency-client relationship?
Yes, I have really had the pleasure of working with some fabulous agency partners over the years where I've really been able to collaborate on some of the most meaningful work in my career. For me, great agency partners embody a few key themes. For me, most importantly, they act like they're part of my business, right? If they can hang in a discussion about strategy because they've done their homework or they're genuinely interested, it makes the relationship just feel so much more organic, and they instantly become so much more valuable in my mind. If they've been involved in my market research, if they understand the competitive landscape, and they have a decent idea of what's important to my company, I just feel like it makes a world of a difference. I also think it's important when agency partners offer options and can engage in healthy debate. I've had experiences before where agency partners just want me to tell them exactly what we need and what to do, which I can do. I can delegate with the best of them, but I think it's more valuable when an agency partner listens to what I want, but then comes back to me and says, yes, we can do that, but have you considered X, Y, and Z? And maybe challenge me on why what I was thinking was maybe not the best idea. I think another key quality for good agency partners is, and this is going to sound old school and silly maybe to some, but just showing up. And I mean physically showing up. Spend time in my office, sit in my medical, legal, and regulatory review meetings, break bread with my team. To me, that's how you become part of my team. And I think it's really, really hard to build a relationship with an agency if it's 100% remote.
Those are some great observations. And, I think that last comment about that physical presence and be there and be committed, it's interesting to your comment about it would be hard to do that remote. I also think that early career, that acceleration for you when you were at Sanofi Pasteur, when you found those mentors that you thought were superheroes and they were good and they were also nice, that would have been hard to do on Zoom too, right? So I do think you've just done a very subtle commercial for why at least the hybrid work environment where we're together in the same space, all working together at least a couple days a week, is good for people's careers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Especially early in your career when you're being groomed for corporate America. I just think that, it's absolutely critical, and definitely for agency partners, like the relationship acceleration just, I think, is night and day.
No, and I like that phrase, relationship acceleration. So true. Well, one of the things I also know to be true, speaking of brave decisions and pivots, is you are in a transition right now. And I know you probably have some things you can and can't share, but as you think about what's your next chapter, are there any clues or themes or things, because I testify, I want to be one of the people on your personal board of directors. So as I watch this next chapter, any clues you can share with us on where that might fold?
Sure. You know what? I'll be an open book. I'm happy to share. As you know, I've recently left my biotech marketing job, and I'm taking a little bit of a career pause right now to focus on family, with our second baby arriving this summer, which we're so excited about. But when I re-enter the workforce in a handful of months, I know I'll be excited for a new challenge. And although, salary and title are really, they're important factors for sure. I know for me, for my next step, I think one of the most important things for me will be finding a company that has a great culture. Ultimately, people are a company's most valuable asset. And if they're not feeling valued or safe in their work environment, it's going to have major downstream effects for the business and for their lives outside of work. Culture is key for me. So I'll be looking for a position for a company where where it's really evident that the culture is great. I'll also be looking to work for a company where there's tangible examples of women leaders throughout the company. I think having a diverse organization with men and women leadership running the show makes a huge difference.
Totally agree on both of those. And I think that point about culture reinforces, particularly if there's a listener who is at the early point of his or her career, when you're interviewing for a job, yes, of course, you're selling yourself and your qualifications as to why you're a good fit for that company, but you're also assessing them as a good fit for you, right? It's a two-way street, and that ability to assess the other folks and to really put culture at the top, so important. And I think that's another gift that you're sharing with the listening audience as well. You are someone who has had this incredible career with way more awesome stuff to come. And as you think about this next chapter and you look back on everything that you've done and you've learned, what advice would you give yourself if you look back on that 22-year-old graduating from the University of Scranton with a marketing degree? Any advice for people like that? What are you glad you know now that you wish you told yourself back then?
22-year-old Grace. I think first I would say don't buy so many shoes. You don't need them. But really, I think my biggest piece of advice would be to be in the moment. Sometimes as a young person in your career, it's easy to be really caught up with chasing the next promotion, the next car, the next trip. And you sort of set yourself up to never be happy because you're always chasing. And I'm not saying to be complacent, but I think I wish early in my career that I had put my head down more and lived in the moment and tried to make the most out of every single role, because there was a lot to absorb and to learn right where I was. I think I could have benefited from being a little bit more present and not always having this itch to do what's next.
That really resonates, certainly for me, and I'm sure for others too, right? I think we all get so fixated on climbing the ladder, and if this is good, then something bigger is better. And if that job is good, something bigger and better. The ability to just sort of take in where you are and get the most out of it and enjoy it. And that's why I also think this choice that you've made to take a little bit of time, as you said earlier, focus on your family and be really thoughtful about you choosing what's right for you for this next step. I'm super confident on what the future holds for you. I am glad to be a completely uncompensated member of your personal board of directors. It's just a joy to watch the trajectory, and I really appreciate you sharing your wisdom and your insights with the listeners today. Thank you so much, Grace.
Thank you, Dave. I am so happy to have had the opportunity to do this, and I appreciate you always being in the Grace Tobin camp. You're a great guy and a great mentor.
Well, thank you. That means a lot coming from you. I appreciate that. And that'll do it for another episode of Coming About. If you like the show, please take a moment to subscribe so you get notified of future episodes and can catch up to the ones you may have missed. Also, if you have a moment, I'd love it if you left us a review so that other people like yourself can learn about the show. I'll see you next time.
This has been Coming About. We hope these conversations have left you feeling empowered and ready to take your organization to the next level. To speak with Dave about your business transformation or to learn more about Health Monitor Network, go to healthmonitornetwork.com. And don't forget to check out his book, Coming About: How We Transformed a Major Media Company and the Lessons There for You. Available wherever books are sold. Coming About with David Paragamian is a production of Advantage Audio.